She will be, yeah. That's what's happening.
Good afternoon. Frank.
Hey, Jake, I am running a press conference downstairs, so I'm like half into 3 meetings. So
Yeah,
if you need,
I
let me
figured.
know. I didn't realize I had to allow people in, but you should be good to go. I made you a co-host so you can bring people in and out. You just have to promote them to panelists. Go to literally attendee mode. I can do that too.
Okay.
So go to participants and then view a full attendee list. And you should be able to bring people in by clicking on their name and then promoting them
Right.
to panelists.
Promote to
And then we
panelists,
talk.
right? Okay, that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay, so if you have any issues, I'll be monitoring the chat, but I won't be monitoring the actual meeting.
Okay, yeah, because there's a couple other people that we're expecting, like Mark Stagg. I told him to just kind of, I sent that email to everybody saying, we're having a little bit of an issue, but stand by. So hopefully he'll try and rejoin here.
Okay, yeah. If there's any issues on his end, just put it in the chat and I'll try to work it out.
Yeah, because Rich Spiker and Mark Stagg are two of the other committee members that should be joining.
Okay. I'm going to go on mute because we're going to get ready to start the press conference here in about 7 minutes. And
Okay,
then,
so I'll just chat. I'll chat with you then.
yeah, if you have anything else.
Okay.
Jake, how are you?
I'm okay, Dan. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. It's pretty nice and warm out here today. In the Arboretum.
I like your background.
Hey, leaf is foremost in my mind, Yeah, I'm glad to see you guys a living plant there behind you too.
Well, it's a close facsimile.
Easy to take care of. Nice.
It was present when I moved into this office.
All right. Nice.
But at least it's green. It's green. So
yeah.
And I'm wearing green. So
could have fooled me. Yeah, it's good. Okay, I see Mark's in.
That's because it's not a close-up. Upon closer inspection, you would realize pretty easily that
yeah, what it is. I get it.
All right, I'm just promoting everybody to panelists here so that we can get into the discussion. And I think we're still waiting on Rich.
Well, Brian's on to present.
But I let Brian and Philip in, and we've got Mark and Deb and yourself. And of course, Shelley had indicated that she tried to get her schedule moved around, but wasn't able to do so. But Rich should be hopefully joining us here soon. Well, thanks for everybody's patience while we're kind of getting ready to sort of formally get going here. Per what we did the last time around, we'll just kind of follow the same protocol. We don't really have a formal process per se, as far as calling the meeting to order and doing a quorum and stuff like that. But in order for us to have a quorum, if that's even required, we do need another member, another member that can vote. Because Dan, my understanding is you're going to abstain from a vote.
Yeah, I'll be abstaining. As I got involvement in this, but I'll go ahead and do like we normally would. I was just pulling up the drawings and stuff here too. They look nice. Nice job, Brian.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Well done. Well done.
Jake, do you know if any of the neighbors will be joining this? Is this open to the public?
It's not really set up as a public meeting. The planning commission meetings are really the formal public meetings with regards to applications like this.
Okay.
We've sometimes had joint meetings, which is what my backup plan would have been for today if the Zoom link wouldn't have gotten going. We just would have postponed this to the planning commission meeting date and done a joint presentation. And then of course, you have more people involved. But I mean, we've had a couple people ask about, people that are familiar with the design review process, like Jan Ferguson, for instance. And
Right.
basically that's what I relayed to her. I said, well, Jan, this isn't really a public meeting. It's a technical review by the design review committee. And then of course, the public has an opportunity to comment on the application at the planning commission meeting. So she was fine with that. It's not like we haven't had people sort of sit in, but we don't accept public comment. And I think we're comfortable with saying, yeah, that should be reserved for the planning commission.
Okay.
Huh. Well, I'm hoping that Rich is getting through if he's trying, or hopefully he's trying to get through.
And Brian, are you at your home office or are you at the office there?
I'm at the office. We get a little bit better internet service here than I do at my home. So I think the video conferences seem to work better if I do it from my office.
Okay. Is Rich in the office? Is he working from home?
No, he's not. He's been working from home.
Yeah.
It's been pretty empty here, pretty lonely here.
Yeah. Which is a good way to have it.
That's true. Very true.
Stay for that way. It's probably more busy out at Trout Run out there, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. Well, I tell you what, it was the busiest season I've seen. And then it was completely empty the first day of deer season. So
yeah,
people have got their priorities.
Population. Just as long as they don't bring their deer rifle down to shoot the trout. Has Rich seen the revisions, Brian? Have you discussed it with him?
I have not presented it to him personally.
Okay.
How long ago did you all get the packet?
Last week.
3 weeks.
So he's seen it since then, but I haven't had a chance to speak to him.
Okay.
I guess with
Yeah, I'd like to try and
you know,
get everything out a couple weeks in advance if possible.
Sure. Well, if Dan is unable to vote, and I assume Rich won't be able to either, will you have enough people, Jake?
Well, not without Shelley present. No, actually, as far as carrying a quorum of votes, we would need 3. Yeah, I didn't think of that for from Rich's standpoint. That's right, because he had abstained previously. And I don't want to waste everybody's time.
Right.
But we can, I think we can still, why don't we move forward with doing the presentation? We can make a motion today, and I can talk to the solicitor's office about whether there's any legality issues or anything like that with not having a quorum of votes, just to see what he says. If we have to do the presentation over again, kind of invite the design review committee members to the planning commission meeting on the 15th, that shouldn't be an issue. Hopefully, we have folks available from design review committee for the 15th, and then we can just kind of do two motions that day. We've done it before. Dan, we've had a lot of these joint presentations in the past for other types of projects, and I think sometimes it was just because we had like out of town folks that came in to do a big presentation for like a big commercial job, and we just lumped it together so they weren't traveling like 2 weeks or 2 out of 3 weeks or something like that.
Right.
But so I don't have an issue with that. So it's kind of up to, I guess we can open it up, and if you guys want to run through the presentation, let's go ahead and do it. It's a good primer. And then I'll probably invite everybody back for the December 15th Planning Commission meeting. Then we'll sort of formally take care of everything then. Sound good?
It's fine with me.
Good with me.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go for it. I'll just turn the floor over to you, Brian, if you want to get it started. I don't know if Philip wanted to say anything for starters, or if he just wants you to go ahead and lead the parade.
Has Philip joined us?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sitting here quietly.
Hey, Philip, how are you?
I'm doing great. I don't need to see anything. I think you know, in this case, since Brian's here and Brian you know, did the design on this, I think he can present it better than I can.
And,
Sure, sure. I'm happy to do that.
excuse me just a minute. I texted Rich about getting on. He said he never received a link for the meeting.
Oh.
So just
Yeah,
I
I had to just
don't know if you want to work
I
that
had
out.
just emailed. Yeah, I just emailed everybody again, and I know it obviously it wasn't working initially, but I am assuming that my emails would have gone through to him.
Why don't you try to resend it while Brian's presenting there anyways? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I just sent him another one a couple minutes ago, 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, there's that registration thing you got to do first. So
Right.
Yeah, I did mine at the
Well,
last
let
minute.
me-
It worked.
Let me see if let me send something over to Frank. He's in the middle of a press conference right now, so he's doing like 3 things at once. But I'm going to send Frank a message. Maybe it's an issue with him having to let Rich in. I did mention that Rich was the other member who would need to be let in, but like I said, he's doing like 3 things right now, one of which is a press conference.
why don't you just
That's the problem with only having one person set up to do this.
yeah, send Rich send Rich the link again, because it's not an issue
Right.
with, and then he said he hadn't got the link. So, and Brian, why don't you go ahead and run through it?
Okay.
Sounds good.
So I'll begin with page number 1 of the drawing set, which is the vicinity plan. You'll be able to see the page numbers and the title of the sheets at the bottom of the page. So obviously what we're dealing with here is a combination of the lots 824 and 828. What is being proposed is a 9-unit multifamily apartment building with a parking out front. This has gone through obviously before. I'm sure you all remember going through this previously. And one of the things that we received as far as feedback from both the zoning and the community were a series of concerns and issues with the density and the size. So moving on to page 3, I'm just going to kind of jump into those. What we have done since then is that we have met with the community in the neighborhood 4 times and have listened to sort of their concerns, their issues, and have tried to address those in the redesign of this project. One of the things that we are not doing is changing the variance request for this particular lot, which is the front yard setback. We are still wanting to move this building further back, still within the buildable area, which is what graphic 1 shows with this particular lot. We're still within the rear yard setback. We just have a larger front yard setback than we think the zoning interpretation wants. So one of the things that we are certainly, one of the challenges we have with this project, and one of the things we'll bring up to the zoning board as we get further into this, is that this particular lot has 6 adjacent structures to it. Every single one of those adjacent structures is non-conforming. They're all 0 lot line setbacks. Some are actually over the property line. And that has caused some issues with the neighborhood, feeling like this project itself is simply too close to them, not for any fault of this project, and certainly not for any fault of those homes as they were historically grandfathered into their current position. But it creates kind of a unique situation here where I think this project has to try a little bit harder than most try to accommodate those concerns that are coming from the neighbors. So diagram number 2 that you'll see on this page, I'm on page 2 again, you'll see the red crosshatch shows the original design that was presented a month or so ago. And then the new design are the colored units inside of that. So we've reduced this as sort of a solution to the neighborhood's concern that the building in the project was simply too large and too dense. It's gone from 12 units down to 9 units. This is a good 25% reduction. The footprint has also gone down, so another 30%. We were able to reduce the footprint size itself. Parking concerns with the neighborhood. They were concerned that the number of the original 12 would be too much pressure for the neighborhood parking. We didn't actually increase the parking on this one, but by reducing the number of units, we are now allowing at least 1.5 parking spaces per unit. Zoning requires 1. So the neighborhood would like more, but it just simply isn't feasible for us to be able to provide any more parking on this lot. Diagram number 4, we get into some of the privacy concerns that the neighborhood had. One of the things that we are doing is creating an even larger side yard setback than what zoning requires along that west side. We're still keeping a 6-foot along the east side, but the west side is being increased twice as big to a 12-foot. We also, with the redesign, did create a larger separation between the building, the proposed building, and the existing neighbor directly to the east. The original design had about a 6-foot separation between those buildings, and now we're at 27 plus. So a larger separation for both the east and the west buildings on this. Again, with privacy concerns we heard from the neighbors was windows and entries. So diagrams number 5 and 6, we looked at the existing windows that are along those existing homes to the west, and then we redesigned the building to make sure that any windows that we had along the west side of our building were not directly aligned with those windows, and that there were no views back and forth, so creating a little bit more privacy there, as well as the entry, which you'll see in diagram 6. The original entry was off the west side. You'll see with the red arrows, and what we've done is we've moved that again directly off the south side, so creating a little bit more privacy. Another concern with the neighborhood was views and shadows. They were afraid this building would cause undue shade on their specific gardens. There are 2 gardens in particular that are shown in that diagram 7, the green dots with the G's. So what we've shown is that that this building is not creating any undue or overshadowing of those properties in general, and certainly not those gardens. So the garden on the west side is not touched by any means, and the one on the east side, we verified that gets a minimum of 6 hours of sunlight. So hopefully alleviating the gentleman's concern that's to the east of this property. Views are, of course, another concern with the neighborhood. And, I think as you all know, it's difficult to kind of address views when you have a thin lot in the size that we're trying to do. There's moving the building to the back certainly interferes with somebody's view, and moving the building to the front certainly interferes with people's views. So we've had some interesting neighborhood and community meetings where one person complains about it located one way, and then we move it another way, and the next person will complain about it being moved in that way too. So I think we're doing our best here, as you've seen with the design, to try to minimize that as we can by creating those larger setbacks and buffers from the neighbor. So I'm going to move on to the next sheet. So this is kind of the first elevation, looking at the size of the building. We reduced it, obviously, in the top diagram on page 3. You'll see the dark red represents the maximum zoning height, which is 50. The previous design was right around 43 and was a fairly flat roofed building. And what we've done here, in profile anyways, and then what we've done here is we've gone with a sort of a salt box roofed building, reduced the highest peak to 40 and then the lowest to 30, creating a little bit more area around the building for those views that we're talking about, those additional setbacks. Also, looking at the context of the neighborhood with the basic size and shapes of the buildings around this, we feel that this is meeting that that intention of getting this to fit within that general massing, the height, and eventually the appearance of the rest of the neighborhood. So I'm going to move on to 5. So sheet 5, these are the basic floor plans of what we're looking at here. You can see the setbacks that we already talked about there in the first left-hand diagram. The other is showing sort of the unit diagrams, 3 units per floor, 3 floors in this building. And again, the parking out front with the 13 spaces, one of those being an accessible space. I'm gonna keep going here to sheet number 5 here, the building elevations. So what we're doing here is we were keeping the aesthetic of this very simple. The idea here is to use simple materials, to not over articulate the building. Again, the salt block roof to kind of keep the peak of the roof as low as possible and keep the massing size within the context of the neighborhood. The idea here is off the back side, which is the north side. We would have balconies attached, and then off the south side would be your primary entryway. Again, with the east and west elevations on the bottom, you can see how we're minimizing the windows as much as possible off the east and west side to make sure that we're we're responding to the privacy concerns of the neighborhood. Excuse me. All right, so moving on to the materials on sheet 6. General materials, again, pretty simple. We're dealing with a very sort of, I'd say, conservative color palette in order to kind of create a more contemporary look for this building. The idea here would be a metal standing seam roof, probably a grade color that we're showing here, which is a cityscape from the Everlast company. And then that's complemented with the siding, which we're looking at a cellular composite siding. If you're familiar with composite siding, it's not quite a vinyl. It's very similar to the material that they use on composite decks these days, just has sort of different profiles and a bit of a different textured surface, but it's that same idea as a polymer material. And the idea here, we'd probably use a shiplap or a lap, a horizontal patterning on that to sort of mimic the idea and the look of sort of weathered wood, sort of matching the historic buildings in the area, the lighter color, and of course matching the lap siding, which you see quite a bit in this neighborhood. There's sort of the recessed area, which would be over the entryway and over the back windows. We're looking at a metal composite panel system, which would be slightly darker gray to help accent that recess a little bit more. And then really the primary accent piece to this is along the west side, where we're going to use a wood siding here. And this particular one that the client has used before and it likes quite a bit from the Nakamoto Forestry Department. So the idea is to keep where we are on that west side, where we do have the residents here are concerned about the views out of their buildings. We're using material that's going to be softer, a little bit more intimate with the wood, create a little bit of a better experience for those folks if they are concerned about what they're looking at with this building. And obviously composite trim to match the siding, and we're looking at a window similar to an Anderson with a gray color for the trim. All right, so moving on to 7, the landscape plan. So the idea that we're trying to create here is really play off the idea of being a water, I guess I'm not going to say a waterfront property, but a property that's pretty darn close to the water. Obviously, we're in a waterfront district, but the idea here is to use things like sedge grass or moor grass to create our primary ground cover. And these are grasses that would grow about 8 to 12 inches high. They don't require mowing. They get a nice wind-blown look that kind of matches the idea and the feel of a waterfront. Those are then accented with ornamental grasses in pockets. We would then use broadleaf evergreens to kind of create some more additional privacy, particularly along that west side between those buildings and the proposed building, the existing houses in the proposed building. And then also along the east, we would probably use something slightly taller with evergreens, similar to what we would do with the parking. The parking would be screened with a taller formal evergreen like a yew or a cypress, possibly the arborvitae as well. We're looking at some grading changes here that we're going to have to deal with. We do have probably about a 5-foot grade difference or more between this property and the houses directly to the west of us, as well as about a 4-foot from 2nd Street to the actual surface of the parking lot as well. And the idea there is that we would take up some of those grades, gently minimizing any kind of retaining walls, using boulder rocks, sort of groupings as we can to kind of help take up those grades without large expanses of retaining walls. So keep those aesthetically pleasing as well as affordable. You can see from this plan that the idea is that the users would come into the gravel parking lot off of 2nd Street, directly entry, concrete ramp that would lead straight to the front door, and then a soft surface path that would lead along the west side back to sort of a fire pit area that could be shared by the tenants. And of course, create some screening around that as well with some of our broadleaf evergreens and some ornamental grasses there to create a little bit more privacy for the neighbors to the west as well. The front, then coming off of the street off 2nd, we would use some ornamental trees there with some planting walls and some lower planting screening in front of that to meet the waterfront district's requirement for parking lot screening. So I'm going to move on to sheet number 8 here. The perspective view off of 2nd to give you an idea of what this starts to look like. You can see the landscaping that I described, as well as the siding for the building, the idea of the lighter gray siding with the darker gray recessed, and then the wood accents. If we looking at the walls and the planting walls out front, the idea is coming up with probably about a 3-foot high screen wall that would be set with ornamental grasses to help create that screening of the parking lot from 2nd Street. A little wood accent showing the street address, sort of a welcome for this as well. You can see the idea of the gravel parking lot. That's still something that we're looking at for this project as well. And of course, the ornamental trees that create I think a pretty nice street facade for this. So the idea here is that we're actually creating and improving the streetscape, that larger setback that we're requesting from the front yard. We're treating with landscaping and creating that. I think it's noted in the zoning, the idea of the landscaping is to create more of a park-like feel and atmosphere. And I think we're achieving that, utilizing that larger front yard setback to help create that for the neighborhood. Going to the next sheet, this is off of the north side, showing sort of how the balconies would work off the back of this. Now, what's not shown in here is the fire pit. We didn't get to modeling that in this 3D rendering, but I think this gives a good idea of sort of how the landscape would work. The idea of more informal landscaping with the grasses, the sedge grasses, which would then sort of have pockets of turf that would flow into the park, or the Port Authority's property directly to the north of us as well. So it would feel seamless between those two properties. Another, I think, important aspect to bring up when we're talking about putting this building back against that rear setback line is that this property creates a unique opportunity to have tenants and folks in the neighborhood who are able to actually see and monitor the park. One of the comments we've gotten from the neighborhood is that there are activities that happen in that park that they're not happy with. They have a hard time monitoring those. And I think this project could actually help them with that by having folks who could actually help oversee that park and help keep it safer. I think that's one of the planning 101 rules, is that if you do have a public space, that residents are usually the best monitors of public space. So I think this project helps create that for that space as well. And that is the end of my presentation. Philip, you have anything you'd like to add that I missed?
No, I think you did a great job, and I think you know, we worked hard to address the community's concerns. It's not was not where we started out, but we spent a huge amount of time, more than I've done on any other project, big or small, in really, you know, having contact with the community, getting their specific concerns, trying to address a multiple of concerns from 10 different NIMBY interests. You know, one didn't want the east view blocked, the other didn't want the west view blocked, one didn't want the north view blocked. One person wanted us to move the thing further towards the lake, the other person wanted to move it the other direction. You know, everybody had their own special conflicting set of interests. And I think that Brian did a great job meeting with them and taking account of them, and where we couldn't address somebody's specific issue, mitigating it through good design and massing. So I'm pleased.
I've got to say that all the concerns were addressed very clearly, Brian. You know, very spelled out, and you know, answered directly, and try to overcome those objections. I've never seen an objection in a project to somebody's garden being shaded before. So that's a new one by me. You know, the garden guy. So that's well presented anyway. So I thought that was good. And I think everything looks great on there, and the way that you introduce the architecture out front to give some sort of street plane, you know, across there with the facades, I think works really well. The only thing that I would say, because the landscaping is in my purview, the straight hedges along the parking lot, the other screening is a mixed border, you know. Having a mixed border around there would seem to work also, but if they want something solid, then you've got something solid. So you know, having a little bit of mix allows you to address the fenestration and, you know, leave some openings where it needs to be, or, you know, just have a little variety. But other than that, I think it just looks great. A fabulous look to things. The wood color, is that similar to what Jan Ferguson has on her house? Does she have kind of a charcoal and you know, orangey wood color on her house? Is that right, or do I remember that correctly?
That is what she has on her house. I don't think our intention would be to match that exactly, but the general relationship of sort of the grays to the wood would be similar.
Okay.
I think our grays are probably a little lighter than hers, and our wood would. We're going to look at some different materials for that, but I think it would be nice if we could create a wood here that would maintain a warm feel to it.
Right.
And it's finished correctly so that it doesn't necessarily go to the gray as well, so we don't end up 20 years down the road with an all gray building.
Sure.
But
that seems to blend better, and with the wood grain, it's different than what she has, but similar when you're required to kind of fit into the neighborhood. So
right.
Shouldn't be objectionable. So I thought that was good. Mark?
No, I like especially the fact that you reduce the density. I think that's important. So with that being done, I think it fits in there pretty well. You know, I like the look of it. I see no historical objections. You know, it fits in with the historical nature of the neighborhood, I think.
Rich, do you have any comments?
Might be muted. Rich.
Yeah, he's not talking yet. Looking for the mute
Boy, it
button.
looked like he was saying something. I think his mute icon is,
Sorry
There we
about
go.
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Too complicated today for me. No, I think Brian did a good job addressing with the neighbors' concerns and addressing them appropriately.
I think about the only historical thing you're going to run into is an old junkyard that used to be there. So you might find a lot of bottles when you're grading that slope back. Might keep your eyes open for those. Might be something good. Who knows?
All right. All right. The elevations, the perspectives look great, and I think it hopefully we can show and fit in, with everything else. So I think it's great. If I was voting, I would recommend it. So is Mark the only one able to recommend it today?
Yeah, I guess I have to make a motion to forward this on to the next step, to the zoning, right?
Well, any of us can make a motion. You can't necessarily vote.
Oh, well then I would second
Right.
that.
So I don't
Okay.
know. Do I vote for that then, or what do I don't
Yeah.
even know if voted one. I
Is
mean,
that
I would vote in favor of approving the project as presented.
okay. Great. Thank you, Mark.
And I need to abstain.
And I recuse myself. Is that the same thing as abstinence?
But that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of abstinence.
This is Deborah. I would second that motion.
All right.
Then Deb, would you vote to approve as well?
Yes, it sounds like Brian did a good job of redesigning it, and it sounds like the neighbors should be satisfied with that. So yes, I would.
Since I missed the beginning of it, does it still have to go to the zoning board? Zoning hearing board?
Yes. So that'll be next Tuesday. And then of course, the planning commission the following week.
And
We'll obviously see how that goes. All the other zoning requirements are being met. The landscaping plan presented today addresses screening requirements for the parking area, things of that nature. So, as far as the plan in its entirety, it is just that one setback requirement that is going in front of the zoning hearing board. And I think they're going to see the redesign and look at the hardship issue of the building layout versus the parking layout and kind of what the requirements of both of those are, and that there are limitations in how it's laid out, and hence the variance request. So we'll see how that goes.
And did the Gusick property go before the zoning hearing board also for relief from the setback?
It did.
And how did that
did.
fare? Did that pass?
It was approved.
Okay. With a full
Yeah.
board, with a 5-person board?
The issue with the zoning hearing board right now is that we had one member who recently resigned from the board in mid-October. So we're kind of working with a 4-member board, both at the November meeting and this coming December meeting. We're going to be working with 4 members. The November meeting, we actually had one member who wasn't able to be there. So we only had 3 of the 5 board members at the November meeting, but a unanimous vote, or even if it was a 2-to-1 vote, would carry as an approval.
And so did it pass 3-0 then?
It did.
All right. Just wondering. So the redesign on that worked also with the neighbors.
Yeah, the redesign on that passed zoning hearing board and passed planning commission in November.
All right, very good. I think it looks great. I think it's going to be a great add to the neighborhood. We've been working a little bit in the neighborhood, Brian, maybe as you know, we helped them complete the little We the People Park recently. And Philip, that's got the gravel base for the little patio area there and stuff also, completely done by volunteers. So turned out pretty nice with the artists and stuff taking place in there. And so Anna Franz is working very diligently to improve the neighborhood. So they should be well behind this project also.
That's great.
Yeah, it is great. Check it out when you're around.
Yeah, I will.
The only problem with working on that park was they start frying the chicken about 11 a.m. and boy, does it smell good.
Abstinence, Dan, abstinence.
I know. For the mostly plant-based diet, man, you know, so. Yeah. All right, great. Anything else then today? Thanks.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks, Philip.
All right.
Yep, thank
you
you.
all.
Thank you very much, everybody. I
See you
appreciate
in a
it.
couple weeks.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Have a great holiday.
Thank you all.
You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.